To help teachers better understand the project that we put together called Outwit-Outplant-Outlast, we decided to put this video together to help you better understand how the activity runs. When you first read the activity, it sounds very confusing, but when you see the students actually doing the activity, you can see that it's very simple. This lesson brings awareness to how invasive plants occupy and damage native ecosystems. We're requesting that you probably have maybe a class of maybe about 15 students or so. If you don't have 15 students in your class, maybe find another class to combine with it, because the activity will work better if you have at least 15 students. The first thing you need to do is create a grid. In order to create the grid, you can do this very simply. You can go outside and use chalk on the concrete, or you can use little carpet squares, or even you can use little paper plates. It doesn't matter. The students just need some place to be able to stand that represents their location and their spot where the plant would be growing. So for example, if you had 25 students in your class, you'll need 25 spots or squares. The other thing that you're also going to need is Legos, which is included in the kit. And the Legos, the yellow Legos represent nutrients, and the blue Legos represent water, two of the things that the plants will need to survive. The activity is divided into 3 parts. Activity 1, the students will discover how invasive plants take over an empty field. In Activity 2, the students will discover how native plants occupy a natural area. In this particular activity, you will have to adjust your area to about 1/3 of your class size. So again, if you had 25 students in your class, you'll need to adjust that down to about 8. You'll also notice that deer and mice, natural predators, are introduced into this activity, which will show how these plants will also be eaten by deer and mice and other rodents that might be out in the field. And then the last activity is the students will discover how invasive plants invade natural areas, and how the invasives and the natives have to compete against one another. We hope that this video will help you to discover how to show and work with your students on the Outwit, Outplant, and Outlast activity.
Activity 1. Ask one student to represent an invasive plant and stand in a corner of the grid. The student now collects 3 water and 3 nutrient tokens while staying in their grid in order to survive. If all necessary tokens are gathered, the plant must now reproduce by selecting 4 classmates to be offspring and stand in squares adjacent to the plant on the grid. Now all plants must gather 3 water and 3 nutrient tokens while staying in their grid in order to survive. Remember to renew all tokens gathered in between each gathering. The plants now reproduce again, each selecting 4 classmates to be offspring and stand adjacent to their mother plant on the grid. As you can see, the grid fills up very quickly, allowing invasives to take over an empty field. Repeat steps 2 through 8 until invasive plants completely overrun the field. Activity 2. Set up for Activity 2 by Xing out squares to adjust to your class size. Squares remaining should equal about 1/3 of the number of students in your class. All remaining open squares can be filled by students representing native plants and wearing yellow flagging tape. One student is chosen as the herbivore, in this case a deer, to eat 2 of the native plants and remove them from the field. All remaining plants collect 5 water and 5 nutrient tokens. All plants that did not collect enough tokens die and leave the field. Each remaining native plant should select 2 of their classmates to represent their native plant seeds. All seeds should wait on the sidelines to find out if they germinate or not. Designate one student to represent a mouse that will eat half of all native seeds. All seeds not eaten by the mouse take over empty spaces on the grid. You can continue Activity 2 for another round by sending in another deer, gathering tokens, reproducing, and sending in another mouse. You can visually understand that it takes longer for the natives to occupy an area with its natural competition. Activity 3. Place students in squares without X's. Students selected as native plants should wear yellow flagging tape. One student should wear pink flagging tape representing an invasive plant. Send in one student to represent a hungry deer. The deer does not recognize the new plant as a food plant, but it does dine on 2 of the native plants. The native plants who are eaten should leave the playing field. Allow the plants to gather tokens. The invasive plant will have 30 seconds to collect its requirements. The invasive plant needs 3 of each kind of token. After the invasive plant collects its tokens, the native plants will try to collect their tokens. Native plants require 5 of each kind of token. All plants that did not collect enough water or nutrient tokens die and should leave the playing field. Plants that did get enough are able to reproduce successfully. The invasive produces many seeds, but only 4 land on the grid. The natives also produce quite a few seeds, but only 2 per plant land in the playing field. Native and invasive plants should select students to represent their offspring. Offspring should stand on the sidelines and try to germinate.